and diminish all my people have gone through. In the United States, to be where we are now, to have a United States Senator in 2020 sound like he's talking in 1962. Thank you so much, Pastor Dixon, then Pastor Middleton, anybody else who wants to address us.
Good afternoon, Pastor Thomas Dixon here. You know, as pastor, I know a little bit of Bible, and one scripture says that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So as our United States Senator from South Carolina, as he spoke those words and tried to backtrack and say, oh, I was just joking, the reality his mouth spoke. Why? Because he's a throwback to a bygone era that he hasn't accepted as a bygone era. But we're here today. We're here to let him know, first off, this community know, second off, and anybody else who either wants to listen or doesn't want to listen, that we are not accepting a bygone era as today's nation. We're going to move the needle forward. We're not going to bow down and kowtow and scrape to anybody who says anything offensive to us as a people. When we no, they knew to stay at home today because he's wrong. And right people will stand up when there's wrong presented. So I pray that the good senator decides to move forward with the apology. And not only that, with tangibles that will show that the apology is worthwhile, while his excuse of it was just a joke didn't mean a darn thing. Thank you.
We have Pastor Nancy Faden from Solid Rock, who will come and speak to us, and then Pastor Hayward, then Pastor Middleton.
Good afternoon. I am Pastor Nancy Faden of Solid Rock Christian Fellowship in North Charleston. I've come to lend my support to this effort because we see, as we look around, young people, old people, black people, white people, and we're all standing together against that racist account that Lindsey Graham spoke. I come from an era where the good old days were not good for me. I come from an era where I had to work and prove myself to be twice as good as my counterparts. But we are standing today together, demanding that Lindsey Graham apologize for the racial comment, for the pathetic comment. And if you watched the debates between him and Jamie Harrison, you found and you saw what we already know, that he has no platform. If he did, he would have acted on that platform long before now. I encourage each and every one of us to go out to the polls, cast your vote, vote blue. Vote for Biden and Harris. Vote for Jamie Harris. Let your vote be heard and casted. No matter how long you have to stand in line, do it, because to take no action means that we agree with those who are already in power.
Now, let me be clear that Reverend Faden spoke for Reverend Faden. Yes. National Action Network is a nonpartisan organization. I've also learned in my 45 years of justice work, I don't have to tell my people how to vote. I just have to make sure they do.
Amen.
Reverend Charles Hayward, supply pastor at the Edisto Presbyterian Church on Edisto Island. I'm one of those persons that find it very difficult to be one of those persons that can hardly find words to say. You know, there's right and wrong, there's good and bad, there's up and down. And when I think about the senator's words, both he and I can't be right.
Oh, Lord.
One of us got to be wrong. As a tax-paying citizen, born and raised on Johns Island, went away for 28 years, and find myself back home in South Carolina. Love home, love Charleston. But Senator Graham, both you and I can't be right about this. One of us has got to be wrong, Senator. Your comments, your words, not only anti-American, I think it's anti-South Carolinian. And therefore, those of you who are under the sound of our voices, my voices, I ask you to think about the pendulum, right and wrong. And I believe Senator Graham was wrong. And because he is so wrong about South Carolina and her history, it's okay to look back, my friends, but you don't want to go back. You want to look forward. You want to be progressive. And Senator Graham, if you want to be stuck in 1950s and 1960s, that's fine. But you don't need to be a South Carolina state senator living in the past. It is my prayer, Senator Graham. It is my hope, Senator Graham. It's not merely an apology, but just maybe there should be a call for resignation. But if you can't bring yourself to do that, I'm going to ask the voters of this state to to choose a side. Either Senator Graham is right or he is wrong. And I declare to you, he is wrong, and my vote will reflect that opinion. Thank you.
I am Kylon Middleton, pastor of historic Mount Zion AME Church in the heart of the city of Charleston. And I stand united and in solidarity with all of these leaders and individuals who are here today, repudiating, denouncing, and absolutely decrying the comments that were made by Senator Lindsey Graham. Frederick Douglass said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, and it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Today we continue in the struggle. And this struggle today is a moral one. And we recognize that when words are used and weaponized against certain populations within our society, that becomes an opportunity for us to speak out, speak loudly, and be bold in our confrontation, our resolve to eradicate racism in our society. Words matter. Senator Lindsey Graham, your words matter. And so we must come to a realization that when individuals are desperate, when their backs are up against the wall, when they realize that they're losing and sinking, that they begin fighting and they use whatever is at their disposal, as we heard earlier, in order to make a case for them to maintain and hold on to what they consider to be power. I would rather be an individual with no power and integrity than an individual who spews hatred, who's a bigot, and who then uses the ignorance of racism and racial connotation in order then to send a dog whistle to a certain segment of our population in order to bolster his position in an election. We have come over a wave that with tears have been watered.
Yes, sir.
We have come shedding the path of the blood of the slaughter. Those are the words from the Negro National Anthem, Lift Every Voice and Sing, based on the struggle of our people. Individuals who have come to this country on the Amistad and other ships that bared slaves that were who did not even make it through the Middle Passage, but finally when they came to this country, built America, built Charleston, built South Carolina for what it is today. And so, in closing, we will not allow this moral moment to pass us by. He's dead wrong, and we're not going to stand for it.
My name is Jason Jones. I am the founder of the United Front of Charleston, and I'm here speaking on behalf of my brothers and sisters at the front. First and foremost, I want to thank every minister standing here behind me. I want to thank my elders for paving this road and opening up this way for us to go forward. And I want to apologize to them, not on the behalf of Lindsey Graham, but on the behalf of the pain that they suffered hearing those words, the good old days of slavery. Everyone standing behind me was born, lived in, or was right behind the age of segregation. We cannot go back to those days. We cannot have those memories dredged up, and I will not stand by and allow my elders to be disrespected by anyone. Lee Shett, a man sitting in office asking for our votes. Today, we stand here, my elders, I represent the youth. We came out in that order for that specific reason. You've heard the voices of the old. We are the new movement. And we are here today to tell Lindsey Graham that while the elders asked for an apology, we ask for you to step down. While my elders ask for you to renounce your ways, we ask for you to get out of the way. This is our time. This is our movement. We are here. To all my brothers and sisters out there that may see this, make your voices heard. Go out, go vote, and let's bring this change.
Let me thank Jason. I did tell Jason the first 2 times we talked, every time he said elder, I looked around with him to see who he was talking about, but I finally realized he meant me. So before we take your questions, I want to first thank everybody who spoke, and I want to make this personal. Not far from here, Sullivan's Island. On Sullivan's Island, there's a place used to be called the pest houses. And when African slaves, enslaved Africans, I should say, were brought to America, they stopped at the pest houses. And the notion was they would keep them in that confinement until the pest, the disease, were gone. But what instead happened, they gave them disease. That's how inhumane slavery was. Anyone who romanticizes that has to be understanding that they are attacking the essence of who I am as a black person in America. But to make it more profound, we first moved on Hanover Street. Then we moved on Rutledge Avenue. My mother taking me to get on the bus. Back then we had to pay our money on the front of the bus, get off and go sit on the back of the bus. And the bus driver pulled off with my mama's money on the bus with the smoke blowing in her face, and he looked in the rearview mirror and he laughed at her. Because he didn't see her as my mother, he saw her as somebody less than him. That's segregation. And there's no way that was ever going to be good. And you can't make a joke that it was good. You can't intimate that it was good. That is sending a message that the price that my mama, grandmama, and granddaddy paid for me to stand here was not high enough. But I'll be doggone, we done paid all we gonna pay.
Yes, sir. Amen. Yes, sir.
America does not owe us just reparations. America owes us reimbursement.
That's right.
Charleston, South Carolina. The state of South Carolina had something called a tax that they set aside to build schools. Black folk had to pay it and white folk had to pay it. What you may not know is that when the money finally got enough to build schools, guess who got all of the schools but all of the money? The white schools. That was segregation. In segregation, the school I went to was called East Bay Negro Elementary School. Negro in the name. Senator, if you watch it, if you see the tape, don't come for me if I didn't send for you. I am not going back to the days of segregation. If you want to go, you feel welcome, but you cannot go sitting in the U.S. Senate. That's a place that's elected to serve all of the people of South Carolina, and that includes the people who look like me. And I'm convinced that you don't believe you ought to serve me. If you believe that, the U.S. Senate is not the place for you. Hope you hear me now. I'd like to get an answer this time to our letters and to our requests. Thank you. Any questions?
You mentioned reaching out for a statement from Senator Lindsey Graham in the past. Did your group reach out after this most recent statement over email or anything to get in touch with his office?
No, I've concluded that the best way to talk to Senator Graham is through you. He watches the media. He may not read my emails or my faxes. Last week, a week ago, tomorrow, we were right here. And I delivered to his office a letter. I faxed the letter to the Senate office and made sure I called them to ask them did they receive it. They told me yes. He didn't answer. When the President of the United States referred to African countries as S-hole countries, I delivered a letter to Senator Graham asking him to denounce the derogatory comments of the President. He didn't answer. When George Floyd happened, we went to see him, met with his team. He never responded. Back in the end of last year, I went to Washington. I met with Senator Scott. I met with Representative Clyburn. I met with Representative Cunningham. I tried to meet with U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham. He wouldn't meet with us. He sent his staff to meet with us. And I told the staff, with all due respect, I didn't elect the staff. I elected the senator. The senator cannot meet with us if we have nothing to talk about. And when he's ready to meet, we'll meet. That day has not yet come. So maybe when he sees this, maybe he'll respond. But everyone has spoken eloquently. We know where we stand. I know Senator Graham. I've known him over 20 years. And I believe that if he wanted to respond and respected his constituents, no matter what they look like or where they're from, he would have already responded. I take his disrespect personally, but it does not become a burden for me. It's a burden for him. He has to carry that. I don't. Anyone else? Yes, hey, Andrew.
But you've heard that statement made by
Absolutely. I don't think it was an accident. I think it was intentional. I cannot speak for what was in his mind or his heart, but it came out of his mouth. And why would you even say that at the confirmation hearing of a nominee for the Supreme Court? What's the relevance of that? Where did that come from? If you put it in the context of what he was saying, it still made no sense. He could have said it. And by the way, if I'm being sarcastic, and it may not be interpreted correctly, the first thing I'm going to say is, I'm being sarcastic now, or right after I get through, I will say, I was being sarcastic. He never said that. It wasn't until he was confronted by the response and the backlash that then he went, and once again, twice in 1 week now, twice, he had to say both times he offended us that I was being sarcastic. Well, sarcasm sounds a lot like racism. We can't tell the difference between those asms, whether it was racism or sarcasm. No one else. And thank you so much for coming. Marcus over there? How you doing? Come and stand with me. Come on, Jason. They missed the shot the last time. I want you to know this. This is Marcus McDonald. He represents Charleston Black Lives Matter. Jason Jones represents United Front. I'm the gray-haired young man who works for the National Action Network, and a couple of weeks ago we had a press conference with them, to stand with them, to let the media know that you would let the world know that there is no cleavage between us and them. There is no fight between us and them. When you attack them, you attack us. I've been at this long enough to know that an old strategy, Dr. King was called a communist. The NAACP's membership made you fired as a school teacher in South Carolina. Except Septima Clark, whose name is on that road. She was fired in South Carolina for being a school teacher because she belonged to a communist organization known as the NAACP. So when you call them terrorists, communists, all those are her code words that used to dehumanize them, to set them up for destruction. Because before you can kill me, you have to make yourself believe I am less than human. We aren't going to let that happen. We stand in solidarity with them. They're doing now in their generation what I did in mine. I fought, I spoke, I was called radical and glad about it, and I'm still glad to be called one. Because Jesus was a radical. They didn't kill him because he was a peacemaker, they killed him because he was a radical. Said in his own words, I did not come to bring peace, I came to bring a sword. That's not Rivers' word, that's in the gospel. And some of these folk who've never read the gospel have been introduced to it. So when you call me a radical, call them a radical, I remind you, Jesus was a radical. That radical was killed for his being a radical. They shouldn't have to die to be able to speak truth to America. America celebrates radicals if they're white. The Boston Tea Party, radical. Attacking the British government, radicals. Turning over government, radical. But the same thing you applaud yourself to do, you tell us not to do it. One of my friends said on Facebook the other day, the Pledge of Allegiance I refused to say since I was 12. At the end says, liberty and justice for all. It's not true. And because I stand up or take a knee to make it true, instead of getting mad that you still make it untrue, you get mad because I took the knee. They are standing up and saying they fight because liberty and justice is not for all. Because until Black Lives Matter, all lives do not matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
About the preacher.
Yeah. And then exited stage left. Stage left, yeah. Hold on a second.
Oh. Can I have the microphone?
Yeah, I didn't know you.
Right quick.
I didn't, but
I feel to recognize some of the leaders here with us. Pastor Arthur Evans is from Calvary Baptist Church downtown. That's next to what used to be the Piggy Park. He bought it. It's no longer the Piggy Park, it's Calvary Baptist Church now. We have Reverend Reggie Simmons, a great caterer.